Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Financial First Aid. I am so honored and so privileged to have on my show this morning Cesar Espino. He's the creator of You Can Overcome Anything podcast show. He's also the creator of the You Can Overcome Anything book series, a real estate investor, a mind coach, a business consultant, and a multiple number one bestseller international book author. His passion and highest intention is to empower, inspire, and motivate others to reach their full potential. Cesar offers a variety of tools and services to help people improve their current situation. He is creating opportunities for people to have a chance at life regardless of their background and current situation. Well, welcome, Cesar. How are you this morning?
Vera, thank you so much for having me here. I'm super excited and I'm doing wonderful. Thank you.
Good, good. So tell us a little bit about your background, like where are you coming from? I see you have MBA behind your name. That means you have a master's of
Yeah.
business administration, but I'm sure that's not how you started. So
No,
give us
no.
a little story, a backstory
Yeah,
about how you got to where
definitely.
you are.
For sure. Yeah. And it's interesting. I always one of the things that I pride myself with and I really think about this is that I believe who I am right now is who I was, right? And really where I came from. And so I always like to initiate with that because it really for me, it really started from the day that I was born, right? And what I mean by that is that I'm not originally from the States. I was actually born in Mexico City, and the way my life was shaped as a kid has helped me become the person that I am now. And so, uh, growing up in Mexico City, first I didn't meet or have not met to this date or don't even know his name of my biological father. I don't know nothing about him, and so I was born just into one parent, which is my mom. And growing up with my mom, it was actually growing up with her and her mom, my grandma, who I used to call my ama because I was raised by her. And it was one of those things where as a kid, I didn't really know any difference being in those conditions because I was born into a very a poverty situation. Didn't know,
Hmm.
anybody, didn't have anything, and we didn't really have any place to live. And so it takes me back because I remember when I used to be a kid, I couldn't be a regular kid living in a 250 square feet of space, which we, in my opinion, called a home. In reality, though, it was just a little room in somebody else's house that we were renting, and it didn't have any running water, any electricity. It was literally right on the dirt, no concrete, no carpet, and it was made out of plywood. And this was the place that we call home for the four of us, and we lived there. And again, didn't really have anything to show for. And it wasn't until like 3 months after I turned, or 4 months after I turned three years,
Hmm.
that my mom decided to take her leap of faith, and
Okay.
she decided to leave us behind with
Hmm.
my grandmother.
Hmm.
My older brother and I left us behind and migrated to the States to essentially, in her mind, give us a better life, right? And so that was a point of a clarity and a pivotal moment in my life, a turning
Hmm.
point in my life, because while I was already poor, now I became more poor because I had to start working at an early age. I
Right.
needed to start working at that age. And so even as a kid, you start thinking about it, and while you now I get it and you understand it now. There's
Right.
times that sometimes kids, even nowadays, kids might see parents doing certain sacrifices, yet they don't realize that in that moment that they start thinking, well, was it me? What did I do? I have no father. I
Right.
never met him. My mom
Right.
left me. What's going on? Right. So those things were going through my head.
Right.
And at the same time, the fact that she left, we were forced to start working. And so we used to work at the flea market, like you call it tianguis, and we used to sell cookies, we used to sell taquitos, quesadillas, anything that we can do and make. We used to bake the stuff at the house and or make it and then go out and try to sell. just to be able to provide for us. And that wasn't enough. I mean, there was times that I will come home and I would say that I will have the specialty Mexican dish, which is a tortilla with grain of salt, and that's all we had for days in and days out. We didn't have anything else to eat, just tortilla
Wow.
and a grain of salt. And so that was our life. One thing that I really commend my grandmother, who passed away many years ago, is that she was a firm believer of education. And so she never took us out of elementary. We had to go to school, we had to do our homework. She was very supportive on that, which is huge. Except again, though, when we will come from school, our life is we go to school, come back, do homework, eat whatever there was. Sometimes there was anything but tortilla and grain of salt, and then get to work. And I remember one time I tried to snack out and I went and play out with the neighbors, right? Like in many Hispanic countries, they play soccer, so we're playing soccer. And I remember my grandmother just rushed out of the house with the belt and literally started beating me up to get back to work. And while I look at that, I say, well, that's not good, right? And anybody will say that's child abuse, or that's that shouldn't be tolerated. I didn't realize too, though, that at that moment, though, that was my life. I didn't have the luxury to go out and play with friends. I couldn't do that. If we
Right.
were not performing, we were not making money. We couldn't survive. And so that was my life. And so when I look back, it's like right now, even right now in my business, is any downtime that I have, it has to be downtime that I deserve. Otherwise, I need to get to work. I need to get to doing the things that I have to do, because you don't have the luxury to
Right.
be in a down moment when you're
Right.
trying to perform. Because
Right.
again, you might be facing bankruptcy, you might be facing, losing your job, you might be facing all these different things, and sitting around watching TV or doing things that are not productive, being downtime, is not going to help. And so for me, back then, that was a downtime moment that I said, you know what? Yeah, she was right. I look back now, and she was right. I didn't have the luxury. And so we got, we were always again working through those things. And then we got to a point where my grandma said, you know what, this ain't working. Right? Those are probably were not the words, but I'm thinking, that's what she said. This ain't working. And so she ended up getting us a sewing machine for my older brother, who's 2 years older than me, and myself and her. So the three of us had sewing machines, and we used to sew clothing for dolls. And we would do that. I mean, it was like some very long nights doing that. And I remember we would sold this dresses or clothing for dolls, and then we will fill up these 50-gallon bags, and then we'll have to carry them and take them on the bus, public transportation, about an hour and a half away. Which I'm glad that we never got robbed. An hour and a half away to go to the factory, deliver them, so we can get paid and eat and put food on the table. And so, by the way, if anybody in your show is looking for a Halloween custom, I might be able to do something for them, since I know how to sew clothing. But nevertheless, that was that. And it wasn't until the age of 10, okay, 6 years later, that my mom finally came back. And she already come by a couple of times, except
Right.
this one was different. She finally came back and said, "I'm taking you guys back. You guys are leaving with me." And I didn't believe it, because that happened once already and it didn't really go through. And so I said, okay, fine. And then, before I knew it, we were on our way on a bus to Tijuana, Mexico, right? My grandmother, my older brother, and I were coming to TJ to cross the border into Los Angeles, right, or San Diego, but to get to Los Angeles. Now, obviously, my mom at that point, she already had gotten some sort of I don't know if it was her residence card. I'm sure that's what it was, so that she can get in and out of the country. We didn't have any of that, so we had to literally cross illegally. And so, like, you see those movies where people are kind of running on the forest, and going up and down the mountains. That was us. That was me. And I remember doing that. And I also remember that they had to carry me when we were crossing this river, because I was too small and I didn't know how to swim. So they had to carry me to be able to cross over. Right. And so it took us a couple of days to be able to do that. And we finally got here. And then getting here, it was another challenge for me. And that challenge was that I felt out of place. I felt I didn't belong. I felt that this was not where I needed to be. While I had my mom, yeah, I didn't really know her, right? She was gone for 6 years of my life.
Right.
And And to an extent, to a kid, that was a stranger, right?
Right.
I knew that was my mom. I knew who she was, except again, it was different. And now it was different too because now she had my stepdad, who I see as my dad now. He's been really good to me. Except back then, I saw now a man in the picture who I didn't know who he was, other than okay, this is my mom's, boyfriend or husband, whatever, right? And then I have a little brother who they had a kid, a kid of a 1 year old brother, and so all of these were things that were happening. And I get into the public system here into the school, and another thing happened. One is for the first time in my life, I seen the most ethnicities and different types of people, right? Asians, blacks, Hispanics, whites, all of these different people. Where in Mexico, all you had was one race. In my opinion, was just Mexicans. That's it. There's nothing else, right? Here, there's all these different races. And what's interesting is that then I face what a lot of people face when they come to this country is bullying, and people see you as less than you are, and all these different things. Why? Because I couldn't speak the language, I couldn't communicate, I didn't have no friends, I didn't know anyone, right? And so I got in a lot of trouble in the first couple of years when I was here. I would fight, literally fist fight, because I was defending myself from people that were trying to bully me or
Right.
talk crap about me or say things behind my back. Except again, I felt out of place.
Right.
This was the first time that my best friend, my brother, my older brother, we were not together because unfortunately, when I came to the States, they put me into um they made me repeat fifth grade where I finished fifth grade in Mexico. Here they made me repeat it, and then my brother actually went on to middle school, so we're not in the same place. So I literally felt out of place. And again, my mom was working all the time with her husband, my stepdad, so I didn't really feel like I was in place. And I remember one time telling my stepdad, I said, you know what, I don't belong here, and you're not my father, you cannot tell me what to do, send me back. That's an important lesson, though, because for me, I'm glad he didn't listen to me. Otherwise, we wouldn't have this conversation, right? so, so for me, I realized something though. When I look back now, is that one, they didn't send me back, except the fact that I told them I don't belong here. I want to go back. Send me back to Mexico. That's something that we all face. People face this all the time. And what is that? Is that you're too comfortable in your place, that you rather be in that comfortable place
Right.
instead of facing the unknown or be
Right.
uncomfortable to grow. I was
Right.
comfortable being poor. I was comfortable working. I was comfortable not having anything. I was comfortable not having shoes or clothes. And so I wanted to go back to that life. I
Right.
was
That's all you
afraid.
knew.
Exactly. And I
Mhm.
was afraid to be uncomfortable and give this nation, this great nation, an opportunity of what it could offer to me. I
Mhm.
was afraid of the unknown and of the opportunities. I didn't want to be uncomfortable. And so I had to
Right.
get uncomfortable. And
Right.
sure enough, within 2 years, I learned the language. Sure enough, within 2 years, I got acclimated, and I surrendered, not to give up. I surrendered to understand that
Right.
this was my new norm. And as a matter of fact, I mean, it's a long story. I talk about this in my very first book
Mhm.
called You Can Overcome Anything, even when the world says no. Because I felt to me, the world was telling me no multiple times from the time that I was born to being poor, to coming to the States. And then at the age of 50, and only 5 years being here in this great nation, I get a girl pregnant. And I'm having a kid at the age of 16. I have my daughter at the age of 16. And
Wow.
that was where a lot of people said, "Yep, yep, you're throwing your life away. You're not gonna make it." Luckily, I've always been I guess we call it here in the LA, a schoolboy, and I was very dedicated and always wanted to excel in my academics. And so I kept going to school. And I told my daughter's mom at that time, when she was born, I said, I'm gonna make you a promise. And I promise you that our daughter is not going to suffer or have to work or go through the things that I went through as a kid.
Right.
My
Right.
promise to you is that I'm gonna give her wherever I can. And
Right.
that became now my motivation back then, my
Right.
inspiration, my why, my purpose, to
Right.
be able to give her something that I never had. And I'm glad that to this day my daughter is a beautiful young lady doing great things, and I'm proud of her because she has been able to follow through and follow all of the teachings that I have been given her. Not perfect for sure myself, yet I've been able to teach her a lot of different things throughout my journey.
Mhm.
And so looking back to that and going through all of that, it was great. I graduated from high school with honors. I had all of the highest class in senior year, although it was very difficult. Even during my senior year, I had to go to school, and then after school, I would take an hour bus to go to work. and then work from 3:30 to about 11 o'clock. Then take a bus, come home for another hour, do my homework. That was my routine for a whole year, and it was very difficult. Yet I was
Mhm.
committed, and I
Mhm.
graduated with honors, so I'm happy with that. And then a couple of years after that, I decided to get into the working place, and then I got into college, and I went through all of that, and until the age of 32 is when I went back and got my MBA. Because I had to take a couple of breaks in between because of a lot of different responsibilities.
Because of
And
life, yeah, uh-huh,
yeah, exactly.
right.
Life happens, right?
Yeah.
And so that's more or less an overview of my life, and a lot of lessons that have been learned through that journey for sure.
Oh, yes, indeed. Oh man, that's phenomenal. And the books, I must say, I haven't had an opportunity to read them yet because I'm just
Yeah.
getting to know who you are. But you have overcome a lot. You have overcome everything, not just anything, but
Yes.
everything.
Yes.
That's great. So, what started you on your entrepreneurial journey? Actually, listening to your story, there were, sprinkles of entrepreneurship in there. Your grandmother, she was enterprising enough to say, "Hey, you know what? Let's make some clothes. Let's do something
Mhm.
to earn some money." So that may have, planted a couple of seeds in there. So what kind of got you there?
Yeah, I believe so, and I think that's exactly what it is. Exactly that. The fact that even as a young kid, as a boy, and, doing these different things and trying to figure out how we can make ends meet, gave me the idea of this is something that maybe I want to do. Growing up, uh, in my young years of adulthood, right? One of the things that I realized is that again, and even though my grandmother said, "Hey, let's do this, let's do that," and it was to be able to survive. I think it was more of that, let's survive, because she always had the idea of you guys got to go to school, just like my mom, like anybody in this world. And I'm not knocking that down by no means, because I'm educated in terms of that. I went to the educational system, right? Except you always often hear the idea of go to school, get a good education, graduate, land a good job, and retire forever and ever, and have that shiny watch at the end of
Right.
your retirement, right? That's what
Right.
we're all told, and I
Right.
wanted it. I definitely wanted that. I wanted coming to the states. I wanted to be able to have that. I wanted to do that. Except again, though, I think the sprinkles that happened throughout my young years
Yeah.
just kind of kept coming back. I remember at one time in high school, I already had my daughter, and I will go to Smart and Final, and I will buy a bag of assortment candy, right? Those bags. And I will sell the lollipops or whatever candy, whatever, 25 cents, right? So I was like already selling stuff, like, so that was kind of like the idea of like, hey, if I think about it, even here I was doing that, right?
Yeah,
And then
that's right.
yeah, and when I graduated from high school, I went to a trade school to learn computer networking and IT and all that stuff, right?
Mhm.
And so then I learned how to build computers and how to put them together, how to troubleshoot them. So then I started, promoting that at work, and telling people like, hey, if you guys want a computer, I can go and make that for you, right? And so I started building a customer base based on that out of nowhere, right? It was just an idea, and so I started. I will go to computer fairs, and then get the parts and put together the computers, the towers, and build that for people. And then people will come and say, hey, I'm having problems with my Windows, or it's not connecting or something, right? And I'll go over there and troubleshoot them. And so again, it kind of began from that. And so I always had something that I wanted to do that. And then obviously I got kind of focused on work, and I wanted to really uh, grow up in corporate America, which I did. I think I got to a level, a good level, not the level that I wanted to, because then I realized there was a lot of BS. There was a lot of
Yes.
favoritism. There's a lot of
Right. Yep.
uh,
Yep. Yep.
I was with this one company for many years, and I kind of started a good career path there. Except it's like every 3 4 years, I was there for about 10 years. Every 2 3 years, I was having a new boss. I needed to prove myself. I felt like every single 2 3 years, I needed to prove myself all over again, because
Right.
I'm
Right.
proving myself. I'm doing everything I can to this one boss, and then he's gone, and so I couldn't get the promotion or the things that I was hoping to get. Now
Right.
somebody else comes in, they don't know me. I have to again prove myself. And I went
Right.
through that. And finally I got to a level where, like, you know what, this is not for me. I
Right.
ended up quitting the job, went to another job that landed me the job that I wanted to, a good paying six-figure job, traveling all over the US. And I enjoyed it. Except this it got me thinking. And I said, you know what? this is not for me. There's gotta be a bigger purpose, and I'm not fulfilling that purpose. I gotta figure out what that is. And
Great,
so, yeah.
great.
So
Yeah.
at the end, I ended up quitting my job, which that's a whole new story, and we can talk about it a little bit. Except it took me almost 7 months to take that leap of faith because of the fear of the unknown again, the fear
Right.
of, man, I have
Right.
this secure job. Like, how am I gonna let this go to for something that is
Right.
maybe not
Right.
may not be that secure? And so that took me. It was a scary moment, right? Yet it took me about 7 to 8 months to actually pull the plug. From the day that I said I'm doing it, I froze that Monday. I was gonna go and turn in my 2 weeks, and I didn't do it. It took me 7 to 8 months to actually do it after that. And so that was definitely well worth it. The only regret I have is I should have done it that Monday instead
Sooner,
of waiting
right,
7 to 8 months.
exactly. But
And
you know what?
yeah,
It's probably everything has happens like in its time. And if you had done it then when you first thought of it, you might have gone back to just doing your regular job and
yeah,
never being where you are now.
right.
Writing all these books, having this podcast that you do, inspiring all these different people. So it probably was better that you took those 7 months. So, but
Yeah,
the
definitely.
the journey to entrepreneurship started from all of I guess your frustration, for lack of a better word, with having to play the corporate politics within the company. And so what was your first business? The
Yeah.
computer preparing business? That
Yeah,
was
so
your
I
first one?
I I would say that that would probably be my first one. Again, I did that for a couple of years
Mm-hmm.
and kind of helped on that. And then it's just like anything. Is one of those things. There's a quote that says, um, if you I might butcher a little, but I think it says,
That's right.
um, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail, right?
Exactly right. Yep.
And
You
so
didn't butcher it. You hit it right on the
okay, good. And
head.
I did the computer networking, while I was going to school and working and doing that, and I did that for a couple of years. And it's back. It's funny because I still have all of my, I tried to get very organized. I still have my receipts and the work orders that I would create for people. I literally did this out of Excel. Like, I created all of this stuff, which is interesting to see that. And so, anyways, that was the first one, and then um, in my mid 20s, I said, you know what, let me venture into real estate. And I ended up getting some real estate in 2004 and 2005, sorry. Then I got another house in 2005, then another one in 2006, something like that. And so I started building. I wanted to build a rental portfolio here in SoCal, in Los Angeles. And
Hmm.
that didn't go too well. And in the middle of that, I also started working in another uh, business venture, which is like maintenance. So doing office cleaning and maintenance for offices and restaurants. And so at one point I had a couple of hometown buffets here that I would do the maintenance for. So the idea was there. That also didn't go too well because the person that I had teamed up with ended up taking all of the money and ended up stealing from me. So
Oh,
and it was my name, and so I ended up losing everything, right? The real estate, and so I was doing those things at the same time while I was working and kind of going to school, and then and so the maintenance didn't work out, and so then I just and then I had by the time I had finished school, I was just working, and then I was doing real estate. And then the housing market bubble in 2008 happened.
yeah,
And
right.
obviously, as you know, that a lot of things happen. You went down the chute, and I went down with it. I lost everything. So I was foreclosed on a couple of on one property. I short sold on the other property, and then ended up keeping one of the properties that I still have to this day, which is where I live now. And so that didn't go too well. And I said, you know what, maybe this is not for me. The computer thing was good, except uh, you can only get so far. I was trying to get into IBM and some of the bigger companies because that was my background. I had my business, my associates and bachelor's in IT, and I couldn't
Hmm.
get into a solid job unless you knew people. Again, that's the other thing too. The other caveat, right, is we want you with experience, and if you don't have experience, what do you know, right? And so it's like you never. It's a double-edged sword. You're never gonna win, in my opinion, with politics, corporate politics. So I couldn't get to IBM, and I said, well, yeah, the computer thing didn't work out. The also maintenance didn't work out. Real estate didn't work out. I guess I just gotta stick with working. And so I focus on working. I focus on corporate and growing that. And in that journey, it was very demanding. The job, I mean, I was, eating on a fly, like working long hours, eating whenever I could eat, and obviously, as you can already tell, what kind of food, food, fast food and fat food, and so that
Fast food and fat food. Yeah,
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 and so that
yeah.
led me to, kind of getting a little bit overweight and, not taking care of my health and again, and even when I was on vacation, the job is calling me in my vacations. Like, and if you don't answer, they expect you. I'm like, this is my vacation. So it was a lot of things happening. And then in 2013, I was watching TV at that time with my girlfriend at that time, and I said, hey, we're watching a show on uh, rehabbing properties, right? On HGTV,
Yeah,
right?
right. One
And
of
they were
those shows.
interesting.
Yeah.
And then in one of the commercials, like, "Hey, we're coming to your area, Los Angeles. Want to learn how to flip properties in for big in bucks and things like that?" And I said, "Well, we should go. Let's go." You know, it's a little bit different than what we're doing before, or at least from what I was doing before. And I said, we should go. So I ended up going to one of those seminars, and it was a 1 hour, 2 hour preview. And I kind of like what I heard. I'm like, hey, we have a $3,000 program for 3 days. So I ended up buying that program. I went to that program. Then, hey, we have a 5,000. I buy that. And then, hey, I have a master. And before I knew it, I spent like almost $50,000 on on untraditional education, right? Non-traditional education in real estate. Except um I apply a lot of those things, and I started flipping properties. I started wholesaling properties. I started doing that in LA, and so then my journey of real estate began again, and I was doing that with at the same time with my corporate job, and so from 2013 all the way to about 20. So I started that in 2013, and then I quit my job in 2018, right? So
Hmm.
5 years later, and when I quit my job to become a full-time entrepreneur was only to focus on real estate. I didn't have anything else. It was just real estate. And also during that year, I went through a lot of different, I call it transformational phase. I went through things that I needed to do different to become a
Hmm.
different person, in essence, and to be able to foster different ideas and think differently and start doing things differently because I needed to apply some of those things to my life with this risk that I've just taken, right?
So
And
you
again,
went through a period of personal development, really.
right, correct, right.
Hmm.
And everything that we do, I believe, is a risk. Except
Hmm.
the biggest thing and the challenge is you got to understand: is it a calculated risk or is it a risk, right?
Right,
Are you taking
right,
a risk because it's calculating? You know that something good is going to come out of it, or are you just kind of shooting by sideways, right?
right, right. Flying by the seat of your pants.
Exactly, exactly.
Right, right, right. Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
And so that's how I kind of venture into becoming an entrepreneur, right? And getting into that
Great.
and saying, you know what, I am taking this leap of faith because I think that going back again to who I was back as a kid in Mexico, I had
Exactly.
bigger dreams and I couldn't just do this, right? And so that's when I decided to do that. Went through that personal development, made a lot of changes in my life and to help with that, and just see what I could do every day to get better. It reminds me of uh of a quote from Les Brown, and Les Brown says, "If you do what is easy, your life will be hard. If you do what is hard, your life will be easy."
Right,
Right. And so,
right.
oftentimes, when we think of that, and even in my life, when you think of that, it's easy for us to come back home tired of a 9 to 12 hour day, which I had him, and sit on the couch and watch TV. It's easy for us to not go to the gym and just sit around. It's easy for us to pick up the pizza, the hamburger instead of other stuff, right? It's easy. Yet what happens is your life becomes hard at the end. It's easy
Yes,
to drink,
yes.
to do all these different things.
Hmm.
On the flip side, it's hard to work out. It's hard to
Yeah.
be disciplined enough to jump on your computer at least an hour a day, even if you had a 12-hour day and work on that business idea that you have.
Right,
It's hard
right.
to probably compliment your significant other or take your significant other to maybe get an ice cream, something minimal. It is hard to do all these different things. Yet when you do those things, your life becomes easier at the end.
Yes,
And I
yeah,
realized that, and that is huge. It is true because we tend to do the easy things. Let me
yeah.
relax. Let me eat that pizza. Let me be bad today. Let me do even me. Like, this weekend I was like, man, I'm craving this stuff. I'm gonna be bad this time. You get me? Except I'll get back at it again today. And so again,
Yes.
you got to look at that stuff from that perspective for sure.
Yes, yes, for sure. So, what do you think, how did you come around to doing your first book? Like, where did that come from?
Yeah, yeah. Again. I left my 9 to 5, focus 100% on real estate, and then I had met another gentleman by the name of Marshall Silver, and I was
Mhm.
doing his. I went to his event, which is a kind of like a self development, business development type of event, and then um, uh, learn from that. I kept going to a lot of those seminars, and I found a lot of people there that were a little bit, um, I would say in the same path. They wanted more out of life, and so I just
Mhm.
got very involved with people like that. And then knowing those people that were attending those events became good friends, and then somebody ended up. Pitching my story or who I am and a little bit of my background to somebody else, and they said, "Hey, you should contact this person. They're working on a collaboration book called I'll remember the name in a second." And he said, contact this person. I think you'd be a good fit for their book. And so I
Right.
did, I spoke to this person, and they definitely love my story, and they asked me to be part of their book and collaborate. And that was the first time me writing anything for that matter. And
Okay, okay.
and so I did that book. I did a chapter in that book, and that was a good experience. And then going through that experience, and then going through the seminars, I came of the idea of, what if I write a book of my life? And I
Right.
started
Yeah.
thinking of that. And I said,
Yeah.
you know what? I'm gonna do this. I was motivated. I was pumped. And then
Okay.
guess what happened? I came back home from that seminar. About a week later, I was gonna start writing my book. And then the unexpected happened, which happens to all of us. I talked myself out of it. I talked to myself and I said, Caesar, who are you kidding? You're not a writer. You
Right.
don't like to read. The last time you read something was in high school for your English class. Um,
You're a numbers guy.
yeah, exactly. You're like who are you kidding? And no one's gonna want to read your story. No one's gonna buy your book. Why would you even bother? And so I talk myself out of it. And that happens to us a lot. We talk
Yes.
ourselves out of doing something that we know we want to deep down, except because we've never done it, or we're so afraid, or we are afraid of what other things people are gonna think,
Yep. All of
that
those
we just
things.
don't do it.
Yes. Yes, all
We,
of
we
those
talk ourselves
things.
out of it.
Yep. Yep.
So what did I do?
Absolutely.
Yes, that happened. And so a couple of about a month or two went by, and the idea came back in. And this time I said, you know what? What about if I put different lenses and I see it from a different perspective? Let me look at it from a different point of view. And so when I did that and I started seeing it from a different point of view, I said, so what if nobody buys my book? So
Right.
what if I'm not a writer? So what if literally nobody does it, except I do this for me as a
Right.
self accomplishment, something
Yes.
for me that I feel good about it, so that I also can leave something behind for my daughter to
Yes.
remember me by. Let that be
Yes.
the reason
Let
for
that be
me and
the
my daughter.
reason. Yep. Yep.
When you change, and this is for everyone listening to this right now, when
Yes.
you are faced with something like this, look at what can you do. Change that framing, that way
Yep.
of thinking, that
Mhm.
purpose, that reason. Change that, and then you're gonna realize that when you build that in your mind, you can actually do that. And so for me, I did that. I changed the reason, and I said, I don't care if nobody buys my book. I don't care if I don't sell any book. I want to do this for me. And I don't care if
Right.
it's going to cost me $6,000, which is what I pay, by the way, or $7,000 after I did my bestseller campaign. It was like 8,000 at the end of the day. It doesn't matter if I pay 8 or 6 or $100. I'm doing this for me,
Right.
because the human mind, the way it works, that self accomplishment is huge. Think of the day that you bought your first house. Think of the day that you bought your first car, your first phone. What did that feel like? You
Right.
wanted that. You didn't care about the price. You
Right.
were so proud of yourself of doing something for yourself.
Right.
And I
Right.
said, I don't care if nobody, I don't care what people think. I'm gonna do this. And so I
And
started
look at
writing.
this. Now we're 13 books later.
Yeah, I started writing. And I finished my very first book about a month and a half to 2 months prior than expected. And then I published the book. And my publisher at that time, when I did it, published the book. And oh my god, I was getting all of these different comments of my book, and people that I knew and people that I didn't know. It's like, I've read your book, your story, it's amazing, and it's helped me in my own life.
Right.
and I inspire some people to start writing their own stuff and things like that. And I'm like, wow, like this
Right.
is huge.
And
And
just
so
think if you had not done that.
correct.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. And so
Just
that's
think if you had
that's
not
a
done
great point. Think about it.
Yep.
A lot of
Yep.
times, again, we talk ourselves out of it, and if you don't do that, you don't know what's going to happen, right?
That's right. Yep.
And so I believe that the choices and the decisions that we make today will determine the quality of life that you have tomorrow. And so
Right.
if you feel like you made a wrong choice or a decision, you do have the ability to pivot immediately and make
Mhm.
a different decision. The
Mhm.
challenge is, though, that people
Mhm.
are so afraid of
Mhm.
just taking the act of doing or taking that decision
Right.
that that's why they don't do it. They're just afraid of doing whatever it is, that
Right.
action, because
Right.
they don't know if it's gonna work. And the
Right.
second challenge is that when they feel like it's not gonna work, they give up instead of pivoting to something different.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Wow, and your story is a great story of how you've been pivoting from thing to thing, and it's all been successful, and that's wonderful. Now, tell me a little bit about the time period, because financial first aid is about helping people who are entrepreneurs who have experienced some financial hardships, and then they're coming back, and now they're on the other side of that success. What kind of kept you motivated when you were going, like, when you went through that the whole real estate downfall, and all the different things that you experienced when you got discouraged? What gave you encouragement?
Yeah. So there's two things to that. The first one is um, it, it's a journey. It's a roller coaster, right? And
Yes.
being an entrepreneur is a roller coaster. There's gonna be days that if you're not performing, if you're not doing something, I don't care what your business is, right? If you're not going out and seeking customers, you're not bringing in money, right? And so, from
Mm-hmm.
a if I am financial perspective, we got to be conscious of that. That you're not working for somebody else; you're working for yourself, and you got to be
Right.
able to
Right.
understand that it is a roller coaster, and there's gonna be times that are gonna be easy, and there's gonna be times that are gonna be tough, right?
Yeah.
And so the real question is, part of it is what gets you going during the moment of
Right.
desperation, during the moment of I'm not making it, I don't have enough money to pay my bills. Should I go
Right.
back and get a job?
Right.
Right? Should I
Yep.
do that? And I believe me, I have contemplated that many times in my journey.
Mm-hmm.
And while I'm very plugged in what I used to do before, and I feel comfortable that I can get a six figure paying job, I also realize that's not what I want. And I actually tried
Right.
this one time. Just I'm like, all right, fine, I can do my entrepreneurial. And somebody actually reached out to me, was like, can you help us and come back to work? And we need help. And I actually ended up doing that for about 2 months, 3 months. And after that, I'm like, nope, I got to
Yep.
get out. I don't care if you're paying me 150 or 160 a year. I'm out. I couldn't do it. I just didn't find,
Right.
what I have now, the freedom that I have now.
Mm-hmm.
And again, even seeing that, although it was a friend of mine that asked me to come and help him, um, there's a lot of corporate politics too, and I'm like, yeah, this is not so.
Yep.
So is that hero's journey, right? The hero's journey is kind of like that idea, and those that don't know about it is, you have uh this is where I want to be. You're kind of in that place where you're going to that place of success, or where you want to be, and then you get hit with temptation. In my case, in many people's cases, when you're in this, the temptation is like, I'm not making enough money, I can go
Yep.
and make more money on this job, let me take
Right.
that. The
Yep.
temptation of kind of going backwards, right?
Yep.
And then you get hit with temptation. What happens in the hero's journey is that when you get hit with temptation, it's either you have a choice. You either take that temptation and you're going to go back to the beginning,
Yep.
or you're going to bypass that and really work through that and continue your journey of that hero's journey, and then you get to the promised land, per se, right? And so at the end of the day, that's exactly what I needed to do, and I have been doing. And while it's challenging, is what can I do to get there? What can I do to continue to do that, and
Right.
continue that? And so the idea is, one, you got to be producing for yourself, right?
Mhm.
The second thing I will say is it comes down to what is and I'm not saying necessarily your why, except that is huge. What is your why? What is your purpose? What is the thing that you want to do ultimately at the end of the day, right?
Right.
What is it that you
Right.
want to do? So one of the things that I've learned as an entrepreneur early on is, and this is an advice that I think goes side by side with this. If you're working for profits, you're doing it wrong.
Right.
You have to be working for purpose, and the profits will come.
That's
What I mean
great.
by that is,
That's
that
good.
oftentimes I got into real estate. When I left my job, I literally got into real estate because I wanted to make the money. I wanted to say, you know what? I was looking just at money. I'm leaving this job. I'm gonna go to real estate. I'm going to wholesale properties. I'm going to flip properties. I'm gonna take that money, and life is gonna be good. No, that's not the case. Because when you start working for profits only,
Right.
those profits are going to end sooner or later.
Yes. Yes.
So I had to change that and say, well, what about if I work for purpose?
Right. Right.
Right? Right now, my
Yes.
highest intention is to be able to motivate, is to be able to inspire, and is to be able to empower many different people to reach their full potential. That is a purpose that I given myself.
Right.
The purpose of being able to make a difference. And so when I have that purpose, well, maybe I'm not, I may not make money, on this book or on this idea. I feel that that is gonna come around. I do believe in my heart that those things are gonna come back around
Right.
because you're coming from a place of
Right.
love. You're coming
Different
from a
place.
place of
Exactly.
purpose.
Yep.
You get me? And so
Absolutely.
my advice with that is when you're going through that is really have that. What is your vision? What is your mission? What is your vision mission statement? What are you known for? What is it, the
Hmm.
one thing you want to be known for? What is that thing that when people talk about you, what is your branding, right? We gotta build our brand.
Right.
You know,
Right.
financial literacy or being financially free is not just about doing whatever business you're doing. It's about staying true to that mission that you made for yourself, that mission, and also staying truth to yourself. Like, are you living up to your values?
Right.
And so I think you really gotta look at that. And anyone that might be, maybe in a place where, like, yep, I'm making the money, is like, now think about it. Are you, what you're doing and how you're making your money? Can you back that by the values and the vision and that purpose that you have? Do you feel like it's aligned? And
Right.
if it's not, get aligned with that super fast, because that's gonna help you excel to the next level.
Wow. That's wonderful. That's wonderful advice. That is wonderful advice. So, what do you think is the uh accomplishment of people who are um like I guess your greatest kind of accomplishment in terms of helping other people to find their mission, to find their purpose? Do you find that once you get started helping them, they actually kind of come around on their own and realize what you just were talking about? It's like you can't just work for money. You have to also have a purpose or a mission. And do you think that's the reason why so many people feel kind of they have like this void? They go to their jobs every day, but they're not happy with their jobs. They're only there for the money. How do you speak to those people? Like, what do you tell them? Hey, get out there and do something, or stay where you are and not be fulfilled, because that's really what happens.
Yeah. Yeah, there's definitely a lot that goes into that, and part of it, I believe that we didn't just come to this world to sit around and wander through time, and just kind of like work and die. I don't think that was our purpose. I don't think that we're here for that. I really don't believe that, and it doesn't matter whether people believe in God, the universe, or a higher power. If you're here, if you're listening to us, if you're watching this show, if you're in this podcast right now, there's a reason for that. Again,
Right.
I go back to
Right.
the idea that greater power, that universe or God, is not done with you. That means that
Yeah.
there's more for you to do. The
Right.
challenge is, how can we extract that potential? How can we take
Yes.
what's what you were given, that given power that was given to you at birth, whatever that might be, right? How can we extract that and and get that out into the world for you to share? That's the first
Hmm.
thing. The
Hmm.
second thing is, um, Les Brown again mentioned, is, people are literally dying on Mondays, um, literally dying on Mondays, having to go to work. They're having a heart attack. There's statistics that talks about how many people have a heart attack on Monday mornings, and they're literally dying
They're so
because,
stressed out.
right? Because
They don't want to
again, they're
go
like,
to their
oh,
job.
here goes another week,
Yep. Yep.
right? I got to do
Yep.
this again. And you're right, they're doing it for the money, and rightfully so. I was doing that in my corporate job. I was
Right.
doing that for money. I was doing that for how, what can I do more, you
Right.
know? And so, and so that's the second thing, that we got to be able to start shifting that and start thinking about. Jim Rohn talks about, work harder on yourself than you do on your job. We gotta
Mhm.
start thinking about working harder on ourselves, right?
Mhm. Yeah,
On
Jim
our
Rohn is
lives.
a great is he's a great person to give inspiration and listen to.
Yep.
He's really good. Good self-development person. Yep.
Yeah,
Mhm.
exactly. And so when you think about that, is the long story to that is you have to work harder on yourself. You have to put yourself as priority, to be able to really get yourself into the idea of where do I want to go? What do I want out of life?
Mhm.
Right. And so oftentimes, even what we are talking about previously, we get hit so many times, right?
Yeah.
Where those downfalls, like, am I gonna make this? We're so afraid of that known, the rejection, what people are gonna think. We gotta be able to learn how to become stronger on, if I'm calling somebody, hey, sell me your house. Nope. Hey, sell me your house. Nope. And I make 100 calls and they say no, that I still make that 101, right? That you keep going regardless of, because
Right.
that is what you got yourself into, right? We
Right.
got to be able to have that thick skin and be able to take that. We also got
Yes.
to be able to realize that, when you're working on yourself, right? What does that
Mhm.
mean? I said we're here in this world for a bigger purpose. How can we extract what that is? Well, guess
Right.
what? You got to start working on yourself. What does that mean? We gotta focus on, what are you watching? What are you listening to?
Right.
Who are you hanging around with? Right?
Mhm.
What are things are you doing? These are the things that I talk about my book. I did those things. I literally
Right.
had to transform, go through that self development
Right.
area to be able to say, okay, am I hanging around with the right people? Right? There's that saying: if you hang around with four drunks, you're gonna be the fifth drunk. Right? At the end of the day, because you have something in common. The minute that
Right.
you separate yourself from that group and you stop drinking, guess what? You have nothing in common with those people.
Right. Exactly.
Surely you might still talk to them, but little by little, you're going to distance yourself from them, or they're gonna distance from you because there's nothing in common.
Yep.
So you gotta
Absolutely.
look at that. What programs am I watching? Are you? I believe I don't watch the news, to be honest with you, and I don't know about you. I don't watch the news because I believe that is really bad programming. Every time you turn on the TV, there's I think I love how Jim Rohn talks about it. It's like, I read the newspaper back then. I guess a newspaper, right? And it's like, and I get to the page of they're talking about the murders and the killings and this and that. It's a nice talk that he talks about, and it's true. It's like, by the time I'm done reading this, I want to kill myself, right? Or something like that. Because it's
You're
true.
so depressed.
Yeah, exactly. You turn the TV and you watch the news, and they talk about just bad news. Except
Mhm.
people like that. And again, uh, the 99% listen to that, and news media knows that that's how they can feed people, and they can control people, and they can really teach people on do whatever they want to do. I believe that is bad programming. Same thing
Mhm.
with songs, right? If you're listening to songs that are talking about um, you know uh, prostitution and drugs and guns and killing, guess what? You're programming your mind with that. I
Right.
every day at night, and this is one of the things that I started doing through my journey, is
Mhm.
I put in a I am affirmations at the end. I go to sleep to that. I
Mhm.
want my unconscious mind to be programmed with those thoughts.
Exactly. Yep.
You know,
Yep.
and so
That's
so
good.
again, people that are going through that, is you need to understand that you're here for a different reason. You have to work on yourself. That's self development. You have to find that purpose that is aligned with what you're doing, right? I think that if you focus on those three things, it can help you stay focused and continue your path in growth.
Well, that's usually how I end my podcast. I ask for three things. One
Ah,
thing that will inspire my audience, one thing that will motivate my audience, and one thing that will educate my audience. I don't know. I think you hit them all. I think you hit them
oh,
all
good,
like perfectly.
good. Well, thank you. And I'll give you one more advice. And I'm not good at
Please,
relationship
please do.
advice, except
Uh-huh.
this is a relationship advice that you definitely want to hear. Make sure that you are not cheating on your future with your past. What do I
Nice.
mean by that? Is
Nice. I
that
like that.
we as people get hung up on the past. Why did
Right.
this happen to me? Um, I couldn't believe it. You're living in the past. We got
Right.
to look at the past as a nearly an experience, an educational experience. We got to be able to extract the lessons. We got to be able to look at what worked, what didn't work, and extract those lessons so that we can utilize them today and the present moment to have a better future. The challenge
Right.
is that oftentimes we're not even present today, and
Right.
we're not thinking on the future because we're so thinking on
Stuck
the
in the
past.
past. Right, right,
Right.
right.
And so
I
don't cheat on your future. You have a great future ahead of you when you
right.
focus on the right things and you focus on those three things for yourself and you start thinking about what is that objective. The last thing I would say for people that are, because this is a financial talk show, the other thing that I would talk about is when you think about money, right? Whether it's revenue or net profits, whatever that might be, right? It's still going to be the same thing. If you're planning for, let's just say I'm planning for Q3 and Q4 of this year, okay?
Mhm.
Let's look at what is my end objective. What is that objective? What do I want to be at end of Q3? If I want to make $100,000 net profits or $100,000 revenue, let's just say I'm selling something, $100,000 in sales by the end of Q3. First, you need to plan. I don't like goals because goals, in my opinion, is there's think about how many people make goals. I have a New Year resolutions goals that I want to lose weight, and then they end pretty fast. Make
Mhm.
make plans. I am planning because plans you can actually aim. It's like a target, right?
Mhm.
Um, make a plan of where you want to be at the end of Q3. So I want to be at this figure in sales revenue. Then work yourself backwards. How many clients do you have? Depending on how many clients, what product do you have?
Mhm.
Depending on the product, what price point do you have? And then based on that, figure out, okay, well, based on these elements, I need to have, I need to add another, I don't know, 10 clients. Well, what does that
Mhm.
mean? I need to make another 20 calls per week. That means that I need to make four per day, right?
Right.
Chunk it down. My point to this is start with the end in mind,
Right.
then chunk it down,
Work your way
right?
backwards, right.
When
Mhm.
you look at something in smaller increments, it is much easier to manage that versus looking at big picture. People
Mhm.
get overwhelmed with something huge. Oh my God, I got to make $1 million or $100,000 in the next 30 days. How am I going to make that? Chunk it down. Look at
Mhm.
things from a smaller perspective.
That's great. That's great. I think you just motivated, inspired, and educated. That last piece was really educational. I like that, explaining to people how to just break things down into little pieces. Well, Cesar, I don't know what else to say, but that I've been inspired, I've been
Thank you.
motivated, and I've been educated.
Thank
And I
you.
so appreciate your time and your energy. You bring great energy, and thank you. And maybe we can do it again. Maybe we can
Yeah,
do it
definitely.
again
Love,
because
love to.
you have so much to offer to people that I think that one time isn't enough. So thank you so
Yeah.
much for being on Financial First Aid, and I look forward to having you on again. Thank you.
Thank you so much.